Force Yourself to Be Consistent book by Jack Ridge. To start this book, if you also face these 5 problems, then you must listen to this entire book. Fast think. Do you ever ask yourself, have you ever noticed how you start so many things with excitement, and yet somehow, quietly, you don't finish most of them? Do you ever feel motivated one day, disciplined the next, and then completely disconnected from your goals a few days later without knowing exactly why? Do you feel like your thoughts are louder than your actions, and your doubts are louder than your discipline? So let's start. This is Force Yourself to Be Consistent by Jack Ridge, and as you settle into these words, I want you to imagine this voice speaking directly to you, not at you, but with you, like someone who understands the quiet battles you fight when no one is watching. Consistency isn't some distant trait reserved for a lucky few. It's something deeply human, something built in the smallest moments where you choose to show up again, even when it would be easier not to. Most people believe success comes from sudden breakthroughs, from powerful motivation or perfect timing, but that belief is what keeps them stuck. Motivation rises and falls like a wave. Some days you feel unstoppable, and other days even the smallest effort feels heavy. Consistency is what carries you when motivation disappears. It's the decision to act even when your emotions argue otherwise. That's where real change begins. Not in excitement, not in inspiration, but in quiet discipline. You don't fail because you lack talent or intelligence. You fail when you stop showing up. Every result in your life, whether you're proud of it or frustrated by it, comes from repeated actions. What you do daily matters more than what you do occasionally. One good day won't transform your life, and one bad day won't ruin it, but the pattern you repeat will eventually define you. Excuses are subtle. They don't always sound dramatic. Sometimes they sound reasonable. You tell yourself you'll start tomorrow, when things are calmer, when you feel more prepared, when the timing feels right. But tomorrow becomes next week, and next week becomes months, and before you realize it, years have passed. The truth is uncomfortable but freeing. No one is coming to save you. No one will hand you the life you want. The moment you stop blaming circumstances and take full responsibility is the moment you regain control. Fear is another reason people hesitate. They wait until fear disappears before acting, not realizing that fear never disappears first. The most successful people aren't fearless. They're simply willing to move forward while fear is present. Growth always feels uncomfortable at the beginning. Every challenge you face is a test, and each time you push through, you unlock a stronger version of yourself. You don't just survive challenges. You grow through them. Your habits are shaping your future whether you're paying attention or not. No one succeeds by accident. The people who build meaningful lives follow routines that support where they want to go. If your daily actions don't align with the future you desire, nothing will change, no matter how badly you want it. Wanting isn't enough. Discipline is what bridges the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Discipline doesn't mean feeling motivated all the time. It means showing up on the days you don't feel like it. It means taking action when your mind tells you to stop. Many people get stuck in overthinking. They plan, analyze, and imagine success without ever stepping into it. Thinking alone creates nothing. Execution is what turns ideas into reality. At some point, you have to stop preparing and start doing. Your mind can either work for you or against you. If you constantly feed it doubt and negative self-talk, it will sabotage your progress. But when you train your mind to look for solutions instead of excuses, it becomes your greatest asset. The quality of your life is directly connected to the quality of your mindset. Some people see obstacles everywhere. Others see opportunities. What you choose to focus on determines what you experience. You don't need permission to chase what you want. Waiting for approval keeps you trapped. Success isn't handed out. It's created by those willing to take initiative. The way you see setbacks, effort, and time will shape your entire journey. When you change how you think, everything else begins to shift. Growth, resilience, confidence, and fulfillment all start in the mind. Consistency is not about perfection. It's about persistence. It's built in moments when you feel tired, discouraged, or uninspired, and you choose to continue anyway. Those moments don't look impressive from the outside, but they are where momentum is born. This is how trust in yourself is built. Every time you follow through, even in a small way, you reinforce the belief that you are capable and committed. As Jack Ridge emphasizes in Force Yourself to Be Consistent, success isn't reserved for the fastest starters or the most talented individuals. It belongs to those who keep going long after the excitement fades. The journey ahead isn't about dramatic changes overnight. It's about small actions repeated daily, quietly stacking up into something powerful. And it all begins with the decision to show up today, not perfectly, but consistently. Consistency begins to reveal its true power when you realize it's not about doing something extraordinary once, but about doing something ordinary again and again without quitting. Most people underestimate how much progress can come from small actions because they're trained to look for fast results. They want proof immediately. They want to feel successful right away. When that doesn't happen, they assume it isn't working and they stop. But consistency works quietly. It builds results in the background, long before they become visible. One of the biggest mistakes people make is waiting for the perfect moment to begin. They believe they need more time, more money, more knowledge, or more confidence before taking action. But the truth is simple and uncomfortable. The perfect time never arrives. Life will never pause to give you ideal conditions. The right time is always now, with what you already have. Progress starts the moment you stop waiting and start using what's in front of you. Discipline is what keeps you moving forward when motivation fades. Motivation is emotional and temporary. It depends on mood, energy, and circumstances. Discipline is different. Discipline is a decision. It's choosing to do what needs to be done regardless of how you feel. The people who succeed are not the ones who feel inspired every day. They are the ones who show up even on the days they feel tired, bored, or doubtful. Your daily habits are shaping your future whether you're aware of it or not. The life you're living right now is the result of patterns you've repeated over time. If you want different results, you don't need to constantly change your goals. You need to change what you do each day. Consistency is built one day at a time, through actions so small they seem insignificant in the moment. But over weeks, months, and years, those actions compound into something powerful. Many people quit because they think success requires massive leaps forward. They believe if they can't do everything perfectly, there's no point in trying at all. This all-or-nothing mindset destroys progress. Real success comes from steady effort, not flawless execution. Missing a day doesn't define you. Quitting does. The ability to get back up quickly after slipping is what separates those who grow from those who stay stuck. Your environment plays a bigger role in consistency than most people realize. If your surroundings encourage distraction and comfort, staying consistent becomes a constant battle. But when your environment supports your goals, consistency feels more natural. What you see every day influences what you do every day. The fewer obstacles between you and your habits, the easier it becomes to follow through. Tracking your progress helps you stay accountable. When you don't measure your actions, it's easy to feel like nothing is changing, even when progress is happening. Seeing proof that you showed up, even in small ways, reinforces momentum. Progress isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle. But when you acknowledge it, you give yourself a reason to keep going. Consistency becomes stronger when it becomes part of your identity. Instead of saying you're trying to be consistent, you begin to see yourself as someone who follows through. The way you talk to yourself matters. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you build trust. Every time you break one, that trust weakens. Confidence isn't something you're born with. It's earned through repeated action. There will be days when life interrupts your routine. Unexpected responsibilities, stress, and exhaustion will test your commitment. On those days, consistency doesn't mean doing everything perfectly. It means doing something instead of nothing. A smaller effort is still effort. Staying connected to the habit, even in a reduced form, keeps the chain intact and makes it easier to continue the next day. Your mind will try to convince you to quit when progress feels slow. It will tell you the effort isn't worth it, or that you can take a break. These thoughts are not truth. They are resistance. Recognizing them for what they are gives you power over them. You don't need to argue with them. You just need to act anyway. Consistency compounds over time. Each small action builds on the last, creating momentum that eventually feels unstoppable. What once required effort begins to feel automatic. The key is patience. Most people give up right before the results appear because they underestimate how long real change takes. Stay committed long enough, and the work you once struggled to do becomes second nature. This journey isn't about intensity. It's about endurance. Showing up at a sustainable pace will take you farther than short bursts of effort followed by burnout. Success isn't about how fast you start. It's about how long you stay in the game. And every day you choose to continue, you strengthen the habit of consistency itself. As consistency becomes part of your routine, you start to notice something subtle but powerful happening inside you. You begin to feel different about yourself. You trust yourself more. You stop seeing your goals as distant dreams and start seeing them as natural outcomes of what you're already doing. This shift doesn't happen overnight, but it happens quietly in the background as your actions begin to align with the person you want to become. Your self-image is one of the strongest forces shaping your behavior. If you see yourself as someone who quits, procrastinates, or struggles to follow through, you will unconsciously act in ways that reinforce that identity. But when you begin showing up consistently, even in small ways, you start rewriting that story. You stop saying you're trying, and you start saying you're becoming. And that change in identity makes consistency easier because you're no longer forcing it. You're expressing who you are. Many people think discipline is harsh or restrictive, but in truth, discipline is freedom. It frees you from the chaos of indecision. It frees you from the emotional roller coaster of motivation. It frees you from regret. When you commit to a path and walk it daily, you no longer waste energy constantly choosing what to do. You simply do what you've already decided matters. There will be moments when doubt creeps in. You'll wonder if your efforts are making any difference. You'll compare yourself to others who seem further ahead. You'll feel behind, inadequate, or impatient. These moments are normal. They are part of the process. Growth always feels slower from the inside than it looks from the outside. The key is to keep moving even when you feel uncertain. Comparison is one of the fastest ways to lose consistency. When you measure your progress against someone else's journey, you lose sight of your own. Everyone starts from a different place. Everyone moves at a different pace. The only comparison that matters is who you were yesterday. If you're more disciplined, more focused, or more committed than you were before, you're winning, even if no one else can see it yet. Your mind naturally looks for comfort. It wants ease, familiarity, and rest. Growth requires the opposite. It requires stretching into discomfort, choosing effort over ease, and choosing long-term fulfillment over short-term pleasure. This tension never fully disappears, but you get better at navigating it. You learn to sit with discomfort without letting it control your actions. Rest is not the enemy of consistency. Burnout is. Consistency doesn't mean pushing yourself until you break. It means finding a rhythm that allows you to keep going. Listening to your body and mind is part of the process. Rest is what allows you to recover, reflect, and return stronger. The goal is sustainability, not exhaustion. You begin to realize that your habits shape not only what you do, but how you think. When you show up daily, you develop resilience. You become less reactive and more intentional. You stop chasing every new idea or distraction because you're grounded in what you've chosen to build. Focus becomes easier because your energy is no longer scattered. There is something deeply empowering about doing what you said you would do. It builds integrity with yourself. It creates a quiet pride that doesn't depend on applause or recognition. It's the confidence that comes from knowing you are reliable, not just to others, but to yourself. That kind of confidence is unshakable because it's built on action, not opinion. You don't need external validation to keep going. The proof is in your effort. The results will come, but the real transformation happens long before they appear. You become more patient, more disciplined, more resilient. These qualities spill into every area of your life, improving relationships, work, and self-respect. Over time, consistency becomes less about forcing yourself and more about honoring yourself. You begin to understand that showing up is an act of self-respect. Every time you choose progress over comfort, you reinforce the belief that your goals matter, that your future matters, and that you matter. And so you continue not because it's easy, not because it's always exciting, but because you've seen what happens when you don't quit. You've felt the shift inside. You've become someone who follows through. And that is where true transformation begins. At this stage in your journey, consistency no longer feels like a struggle you're constantly fighting against. It starts to feel like a quiet companion walking beside you. You don't wake up every day filled with excitement about what you have to do, but you wake up with a sense of direction, and that alone changes everything. Direction gives meaning to effort, and effort gives meaning to time. You begin to notice that your days feel more purposeful. Even ordinary moments carry weight because you know they're contributing to something bigger. This awareness shifts how you experience life itself. Time stops feeling like something that's slipping away and starts feeling like something you're investing. Every action becomes a deposit into the future you're building. One of the greatest rewards of consistency is clarity. When you show up daily, you start seeing patterns. You see what works and what doesn't. You stop guessing and start learning from experience. Mistakes become feedback instead of failures. They no longer discourage you. They guide you. This is how growth becomes intelligent instead of random. You also become more emotionally stable. When your actions are steady, your emotions begin to follow. You're no longer thrown off course by every bad day or unexpected obstacle. You learn that one difficult moment doesn't undo weeks of effort. This emotional resilience is one of the most valuable outcomes of consistency because it allows you to stay grounded even when life becomes unpredictable. There is a calm strength that develops when you stop relying on motivation. You no longer chase feelings to fuel your actions. You let your actions create the feelings. Progress brings satisfaction. Follow-through brings confidence. Commitment brings peace. This is a reversal of how most people live. They wait to feel good before they act. You act, and then you feel good because you acted. Consistency also deepens your patience. You stop rushing the process because you trust it. You understand that meaningful change takes time, and that time is not your enemy. It's your ally. The longer you stay consistent, the more powerful the results become. What once felt slow now feels steady, and steady is what lasts. You start to detach from outcomes and focus more on the process. This doesn't mean you stop caring about results. It means you stop letting results control your emotional state. You measure success by whether you showed up, not by how perfect the outcome was. This shift frees you from constant pressure and allows you to enjoy the journey itself. There will still be challenges. There will still be days when things feel heavy or unclear. But you face them differently now. You no longer see them as reasons to stop. You see them as part of the path. Obstacles become invitations to strengthen your commitment rather than excuses to abandon it. As you continue, you begin to realize that consistency is not something you do only for your goals. It's something you do for yourself. It's how you prove that you respect your own potential. It's how you honor your own promises. And there is something deeply fulfilling about knowing that you can rely on yourself. You also become more aware of how your consistency influences others. Without trying to impress or instruct, your actions become an example. People notice your reliability, your calm, your steady progress. They may not always say it, but they feel it. Consistency has a quiet authority. It doesn't demand attention. It earns respect. Your sense of identity continues to evolve. You're no longer someone who hopes for change. You're someone who creates it. This realization brings a sense of empowerment that nothing external can take away. You stop feeling like life is happening to you and start feeling like you're actively shaping it. And perhaps the most important change is this. You begin to trust the future again. Not because you know exactly how it will unfold, but because you trust yourself to show up no matter what it brings. You trust that you will respond with effort, patience, and resilience. And that trust becomes the foundation for everything that follows. This is what consistency gives you. Not just results, but a relationship with yourself built on trust, respect, and reliability. And once you have that, there is very little you cannot build. As you continue walking this path, you start to understand that consistency is not a rigid rule you follow, but a living practice that adapts with you. Life changes. Your responsibilities shift. Your energy rises and falls. And yet, through all of it, consistency remains possible because it's not tied to a specific form. It's tied to a commitment to keep moving, to keep choosing progress in whatever shape it can take. You begin to see that setbacks are not interruptions to the journey. They are part of it. There will be days when you miss a step, when you fall behind your own expectations, when you feel like you've lost momentum. These moments don't erase your progress. They simply invite you to practice returning. Returning is the true skill. Not never falling, but never staying down. Your relationship with failure changes. You stop seeing it as something to fear and start seeing it as information. Failure tells you what doesn't work. It shows you where you need to adjust, refine, or grow. When you're consistent, failure becomes less personal and more practical. It's no longer a judgment of your worth. It's a message guiding your next move. You also become more compassionate with yourself. You understand that growth is not linear. There will be periods of rapid progress and periods of quiet integration. Both are necessary. Both serve a purpose. The pause is not the end. It's the breath between movements. It's where understanding deepens and strength gathers. Consistency teaches you humility. It reminds you that no single action defines you, and no single day determines your destiny. You are the sum of what you repeat. This realization is both grounding and empowering. It means you always have another chance to show up, another chance to choose better, another chance to continue. You begin to feel more present. Instead of constantly chasing the next milestone, you start appreciating the process itself. You notice the small improvements, the subtle shifts in how you think, how you react, how you move through the world. These changes may not be visible to others, but they are deeply felt within you. There is a quiet joy in this awareness. It's not the loud excitement of achievement. It's the steady satisfaction of alignment, the feeling that your actions match your values, that your time reflects your priorities, that your life is slowly becoming a reflection of what truly matters to you. You also become less reactive to external opinions. When you know you're doing the work, you don't need constant approval. You're no longer swayed by praise or criticism because your sense of progress comes from within. This inner stability is one of the greatest gifts consistency offers. It gives you a center that doesn't depend on circumstances. As your confidence grows, you become more willing to take meaningful risks. Not reckless ones, but honest ones. You're no longer paralyzed by the possibility of failure because you trust your ability to recover, adjust, and continue. This trust turns fear into fuel instead of friction. You start to see time differently. You stop wishing it would pass faster and start respecting it as a partner in your growth. You understand that time is what allows change to take root. Without time, nothing meaningful can mature. Consistency is what gives time something to work with. And so you continue, not because you're chasing a finish line, but because you're building a way of living. A way of showing up that feels honest, grounded, and strong. You're not rushing anymore. You're not forcing anymore. You're simply walking forward step by step, with trust in the process and trust in yourself. This is how consistency becomes more than a habit. It becomes a relationship with life itself. A way of meeting each day with intention instead of avoidance. With effort instead of excuses. With patience instead of pressure. And in that steady rhythm, you discover something beautiful. You're no longer trying to become someone else. You're becoming more fully yourself. As this practice deepens, you begin to notice that consistency is slowly reshaping not just what you do, but how you see yourself. The inner dialogue softens. The harsh voice that once demanded perfection starts to fade, replaced by a steadier, kinder tone that simply asks for honesty and effort. You are no longer trying to dominate yourself into change. You are learning how to guide yourself into it. You become more aware of how your environment affects your behavior. You start paying attention to what pulls you forward and what quietly drains you. Certain spaces make you feel focused. Certain people make you feel grounded. Certain habits make you feel strong. And slowly, almost without force, you begin arranging your life to support the person you are becoming. This is not control. This is alignment. Your attention shifts from motivation to reliability. Motivation comes and goes. It rises in moments of excitement and disappears when things feel heavy or dull. But reliability stays. Reliability is what gets you out of bed when there is no inspiration. Reliability is what keeps you moving when there is no applause. Reliability becomes your new standard, and it is far more powerful than motivation ever was. You also learn to respect your limits. Not in a way that shrinks you, but in a way that preserves you. You stop burning yourself out for the sake of progress. You understand that exhaustion is not a badge of honor. Sustainable growth is built on energy, not depletion. So you rest when you need to. You slow down when you must. And you trust that rest is not a step backward, but a preparation for the next step forward. You begin to experience a new kind of discipline. Not rigid, not punishing, not cold. A discipline that feels warm and supportive. A discipline that says, I will take care of myself by doing what I said I would do. A discipline that is rooted in self-respect rather than self-criticism. This changes how you respond to difficulty. When something goes wrong, you no longer collapse into frustration or blame. You become curious. You ask what happened. You ask what can be adjusted. You ask what you can learn. And then you continue. There is no drama in this process. Just clarity and movement. Your sense of identity becomes quieter and stronger at the same time. You no longer need to constantly define yourself through labels or achievements. You know who you are by how you live, by how you show up, by how you respond when no one is watching. This kind of confidence does not announce itself. It simply stands. You also notice how consistency shapes your emotional life. Your moods become less extreme. You are not as easily thrown off by temporary feelings. You allow emotions to pass through you without letting them decide your actions. You feel sadness without collapsing. You feel anger without exploding. You feel fear without freezing. You are learning emotional consistency, and it gives you a powerful kind of inner freedom. You begin to trust yourself more deeply. Not because you are perfect, but because you are dependable. You know that if you fall, you will get back up. You know that if you drift, you will return. You know that if you fail, you will learn. This trust becomes the foundation of everything else. It allows you to dream bigger because you are no longer afraid of what it would take to pursue those dreams. You also stop waiting for permission. You do not need the world to validate your effort. You do not need ideal conditions to begin. You do not need certainty to move forward. You understand that clarity is created by action, not before it. And so you act. Gently, consistently, without needing guarantees. Over time, you realize that this way of living creates a quiet momentum that nothing can easily stop. It is not loud or flashy. It does not attract attention, but it is incredibly strong. It carries you through boredom, through doubt, through slow seasons, through difficult transitions. It carries you when motivation cannot. And in this steady movement, something shifts inside you. You stop asking, will I succeed, and start asking, how can I continue? You stop measuring yourself against others and start measuring yourself against who you were yesterday. You stop chasing an image and start building a life. This is the moment when consistency stops being something you practice and starts being something you are. It becomes your natural rhythm, your way of meeting the world, your way of honoring your own potential. And from this place, growth no longer feels like a struggle. It feels like a conversation between who you are now and who you are becoming, guided by patience, shaped by effort, and carried forward by trust. At this stage, consistency feels less like a tool and more like a quiet companion that walks beside you through every season of your life. It is there in the mornings when you choose to begin again, and it is there in the evenings when you reflect on what the day has given you. It does not rush you, and it does not shame you. It simply reminds you, gently and steadily, to keep moving in the direction that matters to you. You notice how deeply this steadiness begins to shape your self-image. You no longer see yourself as someone who tries, quits, restarts, and doubts in cycles. You see yourself as someone who stays. Someone who remains present even when things become uncomfortable or uncertain. This sense of staying with your own life, instead of constantly escaping from it, becomes one of the most powerful changes you experience. You begin to understand that growth is not dramatic. It is quiet. It happens while you are focused on the small things, while you are showing up on ordinary days, while you are doing the simple work that no one celebrates. And one day you look back and realize that you have become stronger, wiser, calmer, and more capable without even noticing the exact moment it happened. You stop being obsessed with outcomes. You still care about your goals, but they no longer control your emotions. You are not emotionally dependent on success. You are emotionally invested in the process. And because of that, success becomes a byproduct, not a requirement for your sense of worth. Your relationship with time has completely transformed by now. You no longer see time as something that is running away from you, something you are constantly chasing and never quite catching. Instead, time feels like a space you are moving through with intention. Each day becomes a small container for effort, awareness, and presence. You stop rushing toward the future and start building it quietly with what you do today. You realize that consistency is not about discipline alone. It is about trust. Trust in yourself. Trust in the process. Trust that what you are doing matters, even when you cannot yet see the result. That trust becomes your emotional foundation. It stabilizes you when things feel uncertain. It keeps you grounded when external circumstances change. It reminds you that your inner direction is more important than external validation. You no longer wait to feel inspired. You no longer wait for clarity to arrive before you begin. You act first, gently, steadily, knowing that clarity grows from movement, not from waiting. You have learned that motion creates insight, not the other way around. And because you keep moving, you keep learning. Your fears do not disappear, but they lose their power. Fear becomes a signal instead of a stop sign. It becomes something you notice, acknowledge, and move through rather than something that controls your decisions. You understand now that fear is often just the edge of growth. It is the feeling that appears when you are stepping beyond who you used to be. You become less reactive to life. Small frustrations do not knock you off course anymore. Minor setbacks no longer feel personal. You respond instead of reacting. You adjust instead of collapsing. You refine instead of quitting. This emotional maturity becomes one of the most valuable results of consistency, even more valuable than external success. You also notice how deeply consistency reshapes your identity. You no longer define yourself by your intentions, your plans, or your dreams. You define yourself by your actions. You become someone who does what they say they will do. Someone who follows through. Someone who can be trusted by others and by themselves. That self-trust becomes a quiet source of confidence that no external praise can replace. Your standards rise naturally, not in a harsh or perfectionist way, but in a grounded way. You stop tolerating behaviors that pull you away from your future. You stop negotiating with habits that weaken you. You choose better because you have become better. Growth is no longer something you force. It is something you express. You also realize that consistency makes you generous with yourself. You stop shaming yourself for slow progress. You stop comparing your path to others. You understand that your journey has its own rhythm, its own timing, its own lessons. And you respect that. You treat yourself with patience, not pressure. As your internal world becomes more stable, your external world begins to reflect that stability. Your work becomes more focused. Your relationships become healthier. Your decisions become clearer. You are not pulled in as many directions anymore because you know what matters to you. That clarity simplifies your life. You understand now that success is not a destination. It is a way of living. It is how you speak to yourself, how you treat your time, how you respond to difficulty, how you care for your energy. Success becomes a lifestyle of alignment rather than a trophy you chase. You no longer feel behind. You no longer feel like you are racing against others. You feel rooted in your own path. You feel connected to what you are building. You feel calm about the future because you are actively shaping it, one small action at a time. You see now that the real power of consistency is not what it gives you. It is who it turns you into. It turns you into someone who is steady, resilient, aware, and capable. Someone who can face uncertainty without panic. Someone who can handle responsibility without overwhelm. Someone who can grow without losing themselves. And in that realization, something settles inside you. A deep sense of peace. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer fighting yourself. You are working with yourself. You are walking with yourself. You are building a life with yourself instead of against yourself. This is what it means to be consistent. Not to be rigid. Not to be extreme. Not to be flawless. But to be faithful to your direction. To return to what matters again and again. To choose growth over comfort, truth over illusion, and presence over escape. You are no longer waiting for life to change. You are changing your life through what you do every day. And that is the quiet, powerful truth at the heart of Force Yourself to Be Consistent by Jack Ridge. Thanks for watching.